Hello my friends, this is Amner Hunter from amnerhunter.com. In today's video, I'm gonna be checking out a new free plugin by the company Analog Obsession that will give your drums instant punch. This plugin is called dBComp and it's inspired in the famous compressor limiter DBX 160, a famous compressor that especially works great on drums and percussion. In this video, I'm gonna go over the features, the controls of this new plugin. Also, I'm gonna talk about why you need to use compression on drums, what's my approach on compression using this plugin, and of course, I'm gonna show you some examples of how it sounds on a real drum recording. As usual, all of the applicable links are going to be down below in the description and first comment, and don't forget to check out the timestamps as well that I leave you down below. Before we dive into the content, my friends, I would like to invite you to my website amnerhunter.com, where I have some cool freebies for you. I have some free PDF guides and ebooks for music producers and guitar players. Also, I have some free tools available, a huge collection of guitar impulses, my Cubase mixing template, among other utilities, and finally, don't forget to check out my blog and this channel, which I'm updating weekly with tons of free resources and content. So now, let's get straight to the video. I am inside my session here in Cubase, and the way that I like to use compression is in stages. I use a little bit of compression on the drum bus to glue the whole drum kit, and then I move down to the individual parts of the drum kit, the shells, right? A little bit on the kick drum, the snare, the toms, the room sound as well, the room mics. And I like to leave the hi-hats and overheads untouched without compression, right? Because the tails of the overheads and cymbals need to be natural when the drummer hits. That tail, that swell, and sometimes compressor can mess up a little bit with that. I like the overheads to breathe, and compression can sometimes cause the opposite. On the room mics, I like to heavily compress, but this plugin has a very cool knob to use a little bit of the compressed sound and a little bit of the natural sound. Now let me show you the song that I'm gonna be working with today and explain you why you need to use compression in a rock metal production. The drums and the overall recording is great. The drums are very well recorded. They sound punchy. The drummer is tight. Overall, we have a great sound. I just used volume and panning to mix this song. So why this awesome drum sound and drums recording would need compression? Well, in a modern rock metal production, to have a more polished sound, you need to use compression. The drums need to sound tighter. Also, compression will let you control the dynamics. If you take a closer look to the drum tracks, for instance, the kick drum here, you're gonna notice that the drummer hits in different velocities, different intensity every hit, because that's part of the human element and it's very important to have it and to keep it. But sometimes these hits that are louder than others might stand out in the mix, or you may lose also some hits of the drums. So that's why it's very important to control those spikes, those peaks, and also with compression, we're gonna add more punch to the drums. All of this combined will allow us to have a more polished sound, more controlled. We need to have a consistent level throughout the song. So those are the main elements on why we need to use compression on drums. Let's go over some of the features of this cool plugin. Well, first of all, this compressor, it's inspired on the legendary DBX 160, an industry standard compressor for percussion and drums, which was released in the 70s and it was used on many albums throughout that decade and after The visual interface pretty much looks like an DBX compressor. First, you have here the threshold, which will set the amount of compression. The more you decrease this, the more compression you get, which is in correlation with the ratio. This compression knob is the ratio. Also will adjust how much compression you want. If you increase it, more compression you have based on the threshold, of course. Then you have here the output, which is sometimes called in other compressors makeup gain, to compensate for the volume that we lose when we use compression. So always make sure to adjust the output level to level match with the input. You have here an external sidechain button in case that you want to trigger the compressor with an external source of sound. And you have an internal sidechain high-pass filter. This is not a high-pass filter as in an equalizer. With this high-pass filter, you can tell the compressor don't get triggered by these frequencies and below. For instance, if you set this knob at 158 Hertz, all of the low frequencies, low end below 158 will not trigger the compressor. Let's remember that low end and low frequencies trigger the compressor more. Low frequencies are the ones that are more out of control. The low frequencies are the ones that trigger the compressor the most. Pretty useful to have a dry wet knob to adjust how much of the processed signal will go through the dry signal. You double click on each knob and you will reset the settings by default. This dBComp logo that you have here, you can click on it to turn off or turn on the compressor, and this Analog Obsession logo will enable oversampling 4x to have a more quality for mastering, for instance. Of course, more oversampling means more CPU power used. You have the meter here, and the very interesting thing about DBX compressors, they don't have release or attack knobs, right? Like the ones that you see in a normal compressor. That's because attack times and release times are program dependent. The amount of release and attack times depend on the compression that you're doing with these two knobs. So the more compression you add here in decibels, the attack time gets quicker and the release time gets slower. So you don't need to worry about attack time and release time. Just listen carefully what is happening and you can base your decisions on that. That's why it's pretty straightforward. You just can focus on the sound and that's it. So I'm gonna start to compress this drum kit starting on the drum bus, a little bit of compression here, and I'm gonna go with the other parts of the drum kit. So let's start and take a listen to it. Please let me know down below in the comments, my friends, what are your thoughts on this new plugin by Analog Obsession? What's your approach when using compression on drums? Can you share with us your experience using compression on drums, or what's your biggest problem when using compression? It's a very interesting topic, so I will be very glad to read your comments. Before we go, my friends, I would like to invite you to my website, amnorhunter.com, where I have some free stuff for you. I have some free PDF guides and ebooks for music producers and guitar players. Also, I have some free tools available, a huge collection of guitar impulses, my Cubase mixing template, among other utilities. And finally, don't forget to check out my blog and this channel, which I'm updating weekly with tons of free content. Thank you very much for watching the video. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you very soon on the next one. Alright? Take care.